The following is an excerpt from the Star Trek Universe podcast. Search for the Star Trek Universe podcast in whatever podcast catcher you use. I think that somehow lore is going to be used, and it's very possible that whatever consciousness is kicking around inside of Soji at this point, and possibly others in the nest, as Narek called it, it's very possible their end game is not only destruction, but also to bring lore about. We know, like, the lore, I think, is probably one of the only characters. Well, that's probably not true. Lore's specific character, last thing we know of his character was he wanted to destroy all non-synthetic life.
Yeah.
You remember that? That was the last thing he said in Descent. He wanted to, he thought that it was time to evolve to all synthetic life. So, like, I think that fits his purposes perfectly.
Yeah. Now, as for Bruce, especially after this episode, I think by the end of Measure of a Man, he saw Data's value and recognized him as a true life form.
I agree. He's definitely as he said, a questionable individual when he first showed up, but he grew to believe in Data. But also, especially as Rob hadn't seen this at this point, but clearly this episode when he says, they're so perfect. They're perfect in their imperfection. Talking about Soji and Daj, that they are. He's a true believer that synthetic life is real now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Synthetic life is life.
All right, number 3. Lore has a history of being able to control dislocated Borg and making them follow his cause. In the TNG episode Descent, Lore is referred to as the One, or the one who will destroy, or the destroyer of biological organisms. Lore is well known to be the evil twin of Data and Lore. Yeah, that's a good point, man.
Did they ever say the one that will destroy? Or is he just presuming that?
He's saying that's what I don't remember it.
I don't remember this. They do call him the One throughout that episode. And they might have said the one who will destroy in this. But and he does definitely in that episode talk about destroying biological life in lieu of synthetic. So yeah, I think it's all solid.
Yeah. I mean, I would go back and watch Descent, but we just watched it and I don't want to. Number 4, when Maddox and Lore unite, they create Daj and Soji. One of them is good and one is evil, and the evil one would or could be referred to as the Destroyer because they are the spawn of Lore and perceived as the ultra evil twin trained by the one who will destroy in Lore. I don't know, man. I mean, it's possible Daj was the evil one. Yeah. If there is an evil and a good one, but
it's possible Daj was the good one. And that Soji's the evil one. It's like, I think it is very possible we're heading towards a strong mistrust of Soji by us in the future.
Right.
Like, I think that it's very, like, I'm not sure that she will end up on the side of evil, but like, I think it's very possible she will do, like, when she's activated, her activated self will, we will realize that her purposes are not good. And that Narek and his sister are actually sort of allies in this whole fight in the end.
Yeah, I feel like they're Soji, and then there's the underlying consciousness.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't mention it earlier. We got confirmation that the mother is an AI, which I presumed from the very first time Daj talked to her mother.
Yeah, we did. Now, but yeah, I think Soji is different. I don't think there's a heel turn here. I think this Soji is actually a life and has a benevolence about her, and then underneath there's going to be a lore situation happening.
She's like a real Ash Tyler there,
right? I think she's a real person.
I agree. I think that the overlaying personality of Soji is going to be considered a life and going to be considered something valuable by Picard, even if that'd be interesting if they used B4, or maybe they here you go. Here's what they did. they used the consciousness that had been downloaded into B4's positronic brain, but his neurons weren't as advanced as they needed to be. So they transferred all of that information into Lore's consciousness, and then they used Lore's neurons with Data's consciousness in them to try to create.
There you go.
Try to create Data's daughters, but the underlying activated consciousness that's under there is like a weird Lore plant that he put in there with its own purposes. So they are Data's daughters. Soji and Daj, the personalities we've met, are Data's daughters, but the underlying personality is Lore.
It's Lore.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so good. That's so good. Like, I hope somebody sat down and thought, like, what did they ever do with Lore? Oh, shit. There you go.
Surely they did. This show, they're thinking about so many things. I mean, Maddox was on this episode. We got to return. I said it when we covered Measure of a Man, whatever it was, 15 years ago. That 6 months ago or whatever. I said that, man, if they don't bring Maddox back, I'll be upset. And you were like, well, don't be upset, Matt. Just don't be that kind of fan. And I was like, all right, fine. But they did it, man. They freaking did it.
They did it. They did it.
I said back in that episode, I would just be happy if like his name was on an institute of cybernetic life somewhere.
Right.
And not only did we get an institute, but we got actually him who ran the institute, and this whole plan revolved around Maddox. It's so exciting, man. Again, that was an excerpt from the Star Trek Universe podcast. New episodes every week wherever you get podcasts.